Watch Dogs Legion almost feels like a game that wants to reset the series and take it in a whole new direction. And if that was the goal, then it does a great job of at least laying down a decent starting steps or a structure that can then be built upon over the next few editions. However, the promises of some of the major aspects of the game or selling points of Watch Dogs Legion doesn't exactly hold up or doesn't exactly fulfill its promise. However, what you'll find in here is definitely the best game in the series to date, and offers a fascinating and beautiful city to explore, as well as some good streamlined effects and what would kind of have to be seen as a reverse nemesis system. So Watch Dogs Legion takes place in London in a post-Brexit dystopian future, where in the opening mission you play as like a James Bond type character who goes and tries to stop a bomb from going off at the Houses of Parliament, and you find out then that there's this new hacker group called Zero Day who have planted bombs and have blamed DedSec. What follows then is basically the almost destruction and annihilation of DedSec. However, just one person decides to restart the resistance, and from there it is up to you to build up that team from virtually anyone in the city. And that incredibly high promise and potential gameplay mechanic of trying to recruit anyone doesn't exactly land in the way you might think it would. However, it is still a lot of fun to go around the city, highlight or profile anyone and see their different traits. So initially there was earlier promises of basically a really robust system where you will highlight or at least recruit characters, and they will each all individually have a leveling system, and as they hit certain level thresholds they will unlock new passives, new active abilities, and you sort of get to build a relationship a bit more with them where it matters. So one of the cooler aspects of Watch Dogs Legion is the potential of using a permadeath mode. And what this means is if you're playing as that character and they basically fall from a height or get gunned down, they're dead and they're gone. So if you had have married that with the fact of a leveling system that would take hours to build up and then you lose that in a run, it does really give you that really cool roguelike feeling. However, even though that is still slightly there, by the fact that you can pick and choose certain characters with traits and weapons that you feel like would better suit certain scenarios, it doesn't exactly fill its potential. There are limitations, and the more you play the game you get to see, I guess, how the bread is made, I suppose. Despite that though, it's still a nice novelty that doesn't really get in the way. You can just go around and take time to just get as many people as possible. They all have their own individual weapons and abilities, and unfortunately as you recruit them you can't mix and match them all that much. You can unlock a series of non-lethal weapons, which is done through collecting tech points throughout the world or doing certain missions, and other than that all the lethal weapons are based on the characters you choose. There's also an ability in that tech, it's not a tray because every single one of them is available from the beginning, so more just like a tech wall. And what you can do is you can de-profile certain characters to learn a bit more about them. So they may have some really cool traits, but they may not like DedSec. So you can then go find out what you can do to help change their mind and sway them into joining you. And this is particularly good for things like the police, or even people like paramedics or people who work in hospitals, because a lot of these places would have restrictive access. However, if you let's say you get a member of Albion, which is like the PMC group in this game, you can then access those areas without being detected. Same as you can get one of the Royals guards. If you can sway them into joining the resistance, you can then enter places like Buckingham Palace or wherever else like that. That it adds a bit more of a strategy to it, which is rather fun. However, it's not as in-depth as you might think. One of the actual surprising parts of this game to me was the tone and the story, because Watch Dogs 1, I was going to say it's serious, but it's also very dull. Watch Dogs 2 takes the Silicon Valley approach of like these new upstarters, like these new tech company type DedSec groups. And that was rather fun. However, it kind of didn't always land. And some of the characters and the humor kind of grated more than anything, despite that being a personal preference. However, Watch Dogs Legion finally, to me, lands that really serious dystopian potential future we have when technology takes over and everything can be monitored. Like, you're hacking cameras for the most part in this game for huge amount of things, or hacking drones, or hacking your little spider bot to do some, to be honest, pretty cool things throughout the game. But the tone here is really a lot darker than I was expecting, and it's what drew me in. It is definitely the most interesting world premise plot lines that Watch Dogs has ever had, and it keeps you going, and it feels like there's, I wouldn't say that they don't hold back, but there is just a little more nuance than you may be expecting to it. And that goes from not only like the Albion PMC group to basically all the gangs that you meet along the way, and it's really quite interesting. However, exploring London itself as a city, it's just a beautiful city. It's incredibly detailed. I played this on PC. It's not perfectly optimized. It can be pretty heavy in random parts. There's some random dips here and there and a stutter. It has also crashed on me a few times. And that's obviously unfortunate, but maybe give it a little bit of time for a few patches. And what you'll have is quite a really enjoyable open world game. And the thing is this really feels like, I guess, the best open world urban based game. So they're like not including things like Horizon Zero Dawn or Ghost of Tsushima or anything like that. Like games set pretty much solely in cities. It's probably the best one since GTA 5. However, the mission structure and just everything else surrounding it, bar the moment-to-moment gameplay, it feels very outdated. It feels like a game that could be just a remaster of another game from 10 years ago, from everything except maybe the profiling and the hacking. The gameplay itself, like in the mission structure, it's quite archaic, and just doesn't feel like it's moving forward. It's a game that's going to be on next gen, and that's going to just look and feel a bit weird to me, that you do these missions that just feel very outdated. Despite that, like I said, going around London, the detail on the streets, the architecture, everything else is stunning. Seeing London in the night with the puddles on the ground is absolutely beautiful. Driving around causes hitching, even on, this is on an NVMe drive, and it still caused some stuttering here and there and some frame rate drops randomly when moving fast. But still, it's an enjoyable game. It's smooth as hell if you've compared it to other Watch Dogs games. Like, the driving feels really good for once. Hacking is just a tap of a button. There's no battery charges that you used to have, so you can go crazy with it and just make every single car in front of you just turn off or veer off, pull up ramps, bollards, whatever you want as quick as you can. Another thing, the last major negative I have about the game, to be perfectly honest, is the AI. It's not great. It doesn't seem that smart. It kind of takes cover around you and then moves closer and closer to you. There's no nuance to what they're doing compared to what you're doing. There's no hacking of things. There's no ideas. The police is the easiest thing to get away from in this game, regardless of how high it seems to get. If you're getting chased, you just slow down a bit, turn the camera around, and then just hack it to turn off to the left and drive into a wall. It's just kind of boring after a while, to be perfectly honest. But despite that, Watch Dogs Legion is definitely the best in the series. It's an excellent foundation, but it's not everything you might want it to be right now. It'd be interesting to see where they go with the series going forward, but I mean, when the game just comes out, that's probably the last thing you want to hear is like, hey, I wonder what the next one's going to be like. It's good. It's a good game. It's just getting there to be something more, but it's not yet anyway.